The stars stretched endlessly around the small scout ship Aurora. Captain Sarah Ellis sat quietly in the cockpit, her eyes fixed on the dim green flicker of the navigation screen. The silence of space was thick, broken only by the faint hum of the ship's engines and the occasional beep of the communications console. It was supposed to be a routine scouting mission to chart unexplored sectors on the edge of known space. But then the distress signal arrived. At first the message was faint, almost drowned out by cosmic static. But Sarah's trained ears caught the desperate pulse hidden beneath the noise. The voice was weak, trembling with fear. "This is the last broadcast. Help. Deathworlders. Killing everyone rescue." Sarah leaned forward, heart pounding. The signal came from a remote planet in an uncharted system, one that was supposed to be empty. She glanced at the star map. The planet, designated K942, looked ordinary on the scans. Barren. With rocky terrain and a thin, toxic atmosphere, nothing about it suggested life, let alone a colony sending out a call for help. But the distress message was real. "Captain," said her co-pilot Jamal, breaking the tense silence. "You want to investigate?" Sarah didn't hesitate. "We have to. Someone is in trouble." Aurora adjusted its course. The ship moved swiftly through the void, slipping past asteroid belts and dark nebulae. The closer they got, the clearer the distress signal became. But something felt wrong. The signal wasn't steady. It flickered like a dying heartbeat when they reached orbit around the planet. Sarah scanned the surface carefully. The colony appeared as tiny dots scattered over a harsh landscape. No signs of life. No movement. No radio chatter except that weak, repeating distress call. "Let's land." Sarah ordered the shuttle separated from Aurora and descended through the thin atmosphere. The ground rushed up, jagged rocks, craters, and dust swept by strange winds. The landing zone was near what looked like a small settlement, metal buildings, communication towers, and power generators. Everything was eerily silent. As the hatch opened, a cold, dry wind hit the team. Sarah's boots crunched on the gravel. "Stay alert," she said. Jamal and the two other crew members followed closely behind. They entered the main building, a large metal structure. Inside, the air was stale and cold. The lights flickered faintly, powered by a backup generator. Strange symbols and warning signs were scrawled on the walls. Then they found them. Survivors. A small group of people huddled in a corner, faces gaunt and eyes wide with terror. They looked exhausted, as if they had not slept in days. One of them, a man in his late 30s, stepped forward. "Please," he said hoarsely, "you have to help us. The Deathworlders, they are monsters. They come at night. They hunt us like animals. We begged for rescue, but no one came until now." Sarah's eyes narrowed. "What exactly are these Deathworlders?" The man swallowed hard. "I don't know how to describe them. They're not like anything you've seen. Fast, strong, and worse, they can sense fear. They know when you're scared. When they catch you, there is no mercy." Jamal frowned. "How many of you are left?" 15, the man replied. "We were 50. The others, they didn't survive." Sarah looked around. The survivors were all wearing ragged clothes, some covered in dirt and blood. Their fear was contagious, but Sarah forced herself to stay calm. This was not just a rescue mission anymore. It was something much darker. Night was falling fast. Sarah ordered the team to set up a temporary base in the largest building. Outside, the wind howled across the barren plains. The sky turned a deep orange, then black dot suddenly. A shrill scream pierced the night. Everyone froze. Jamal grabbed his rifle. "Did you hear that?" The survivors nodded. "That's them," whispered the man. "The Deathworlders." Sarah's heart raced. She moved toward the door, peering into the darkness. For a moment, nothing. Then, from the shadows, two glowing eyes appeared, followed by a low growl. A creature stepped into the weak light, a tall, twisted figure covered in rough, dark scales. Its limbs were long and jagged, claws scraping the ground. It moved with unnatural speed and grace. The team raised their weapons. but the creature vanished as quickly as it came, leaving only silence. "Get ready," Sarah said. "They'll be back." The survivors told their story. The colony was once a thriving outpost, mining rare minerals beneath the planet's surface. But months ago, strange creatures appeared. They started killing workers one by one. Attempts to fight back failed. Communications were cut off. The survivors were trapped underground, sending out faint distress calls, hoping for a miracle. Sarah studied the survivors' faces, trying to find a clue, a hint that could help them survive. She realized something else. The colony was divided. Fear and suspicion growing between the survivors themselves. Paranoia was as dangerous as the creatures outside. "Why didn't you leave earlier?" Sarah asked. The man hesitated. "We tried. But the creatures watch every exit. They can smell us. We thought someone would come, but now we're running out of time." Suddenly, a loud crash shook the building. Dust fell from the ceiling. Attack. Someone shouted. The Deathworlders were inside. Gunfire erupted. Sarah and her team fought back fiercely. The creatures were brutal, using their claws and speed to attack from all directions. The survivors scrambled for cover, terrified but determined to fight. One of the team members, Luis, was grabbed and dragged into the darkness. His scream echoed and then stopped. Sarah's mind raced. This was worse than any mission she had ever faced. The creatures were not just animals, they were hunters, and this planet was their home. "We have to get out," Sarah said urgently. "We need to warn Aurora and get reinforcements." But as she turned to leave, she saw something that chilled her to the bone, a small, almost human-like figure watching from the shadows. Its eyes glowed red. It smiled. "Welcome to the death world," it whispered. Sarah's grip tightened on her rifle. She knew one thing for sure. The real fight was just beginning. The morning sun cast a pale, sickly light over the barren landscape of planet K942. The colony was still there, just as silent and empty as the night before. Captain Sarah Ellis and her small team stood outside the metal building they had taken refuge in. Their eyes scanned the rocky horizon, every shadow and movement setting their nerves on edge. "Something's not right," muttered Jamal, rubbing his neck. "It's too quiet," Sarah nodded. "We expected trouble, but this feels worse." They had spent the night fighting the creatures, Deathworlders, as the survivors called them. The battle had been brutal. They had lost one of their own, Luis, snatched into the darkness without a trace. The survivors were broken, but still clinging to life in that cold bunker underground. Sarah's mind was racing. What kind of creatures were these? How had they adapted so perfectly to this hostile world? Why hadn't any rescue come before? "We can't stay here," Sarah said firmly. "We need answers. We need to find out if anyone else survived." Checked the comms. Signal's still weak but holding. "I'll try to boost it from the relay tower. Maybe we can send a real SOS to Aurora." Sarah gave a tight nod and led the way toward the communications tower, a tall, rusting structure standing alone on the rocky plain. The air was thin and dry, making every step feel heavy. As they climbed the tower ladder, Sarah's eyes scanned the valley below. Something moved. Quick, shadowy shapes darting between rocks. She froze, raising her rifle. "Did you see that?" she whispered. Jamal frowned. "Probably just wildlife." But Sarah wasn't convinced. At the top of the tower, Jamal set to work repairing the damaged transmitter. Sparks flew as he adjusted wires, the tension building in the quiet. Suddenly, a low growl echoed from below. Sarah aimed her rifle toward the base of the tower. Out of the shadows came the silhouette several Deathworlders, stalking silently like predators. "We're not alone," Sarah said, voice steady but low. "They've surrounded us." Jamal's fingers flew over the controls. "Almost there. Come on." One of the creatures leaped, claws extended. Sarah fired, the shot ringing through the air. The creature fell, but others were closing in fast. "Keep firing," Sarah shouted. The team fought desperately to hold the creatures back. Sarah could see the creatures' strange, jagged bodies moving with terrifying speed. Their glowing eyes locked on her like lasers. Jamal finally fixed the transmitter and hit the send button. Mayday, Mayday. So Scout Ship Aurora on K942. We have survivors. We are under attack by unknown hostile creatures. Request immediate backup. Coordinates attached. Static filled the radio, then silence. The Deathworlders pressed harder. Sarah fired again and again, each shot barely holding them at bay. Fall back. She ordered, to the bunker now. The team scrambled down the ladder as the creatures advanced. Behind them, the radio crackled. A voice faint but clear answered, Aurora. This is Command Station Vega. We copy your distress call. Back up. En route. Hold your position. A relief washed over Sarah. Help was coming, but the Deathworlders didn't wait. Attacked with renewed fury. Sarah's team ran toward the bunker, desperate to escape. Inside, the survivors barricaded the heavy metal door just in time. The creatures slammed against it, growling and scratching. Trying to break through, the survivors looked at Sarah with a mix of hope and fear. Who are you? Asked a young woman, her voice trembling. Sarah caught her breath. I'm Captain Sarah Ellis. We're here to get you out. The survivors exchanged worried glances. It's not that simple, said the man from before. The Deathworlders. They control this place. They've hunted us for months. They know every tunnel, every hiding spot. Sarah's mind raced. Then we need to find a way to fight back, to stop them. Days passed in a tense blur. Team and survivors lived in the cramped bunker, rationing food and water. Sarah worked with Jamal to repair the colony's communication systems. Trying to contact Aurora for updates, every night the Deathworlders came. Their snarls and howls echoed through the tunnels. The survivors were on edge, some too scared to sleep. Sarah noticed something troubling. The survivors were turning on each other. Fear was making them suspicious. Arguments broke out over food, shelter, and blame for what had happened. One night, Sarah overheard a whispered conversation between two survivors. They let the Deathworlders in, one hissed. One of us is working with them. Sarah's heart pounded. Could there really be a traitor among them? The next day she called everyone together. We have a problem, she said. Someone here is betraying us. We need to find out who before it's too late. The survivors looked shocked and scared. As accusations flew, trust shattered like glass. Meanwhile, Jamal discovered something strange in the colony's data logs. Captain, he said, holding a tablet, these readings. They show unnatural energy sources beneath the planet's surface. It's like something is powering the Deathworlders. Sarah frowned. What could that be? We need to explore, she said firmly. If there's a source, we have to find it. That night, Sarah and two others, Jamal and survivor Marcus, prepared to leave the bunker and head into the tunnels. Below the colony, be careful, warned the others. The tunnels were dark and narrow, walls slick with moisture and strange glowing fungi. Every step echoed ominously. Suddenly Marcus froze. Did you hear that? He whispered. A faint scraping. Sound came from deeper inside the tunnel. Sarah raised her flashlight and rifle. Stay close. They moved forward cautiously until they reached a hidden chamber. Inside was a strange machine, old, alien in design, humming softly with eerie green light. Jamal's eyes widened. This is what powers the Deathworlders. Before they could investigate more, the ground shook violently. A loud rumble filled the chamber. Sarah shouted, We have to get out now. They ran back through the tunnels as debris fell behind them. The shaking grew worse, and suddenly the tunnel collapsed, sealing the entrance. Trapped underground? Back at the bunker, the survivors waited anxiously. Hours passed with no sign of Sarah's team. Suddenly a scream echoed from the tunnel entrance. The survivors rushed outside and saw Jamal stumbling back, blood dripping from a wound. We're trapped, he gasped. The tunnels collapsed. Sarah and Marcus are still inside. Panic spread. One of the survivors, a woman named Leela, stepped forward. We can't wait. We have to go after them. The survivors prepared to launch a rescue mission, but Jamal shook his head weakly. No. The Deathworlders are swarming outside. It's a trap. Sarah, trapped in the darkness, fought to stay calm. She could hear distant growls and claws scratching the walls. She whispered to herself, "I have to survive. We have to survive." The night on K942 was far from over. The real nightmare had just begun. The silence in the bunker was thick, heavy like the dust settling outside. Captain Sarah Ellis sat near the dim light, her face tense but focused. Around her, the survivors whispered quietly, eyes darting toward every shadow and every sound. The Deathworlders were out there, Dash waiting outside. The planet K942 stretched endlessly, a barren wasteland of jagged rocks and dark skies. But the darkness wasn't empty, it was alive. Suddenly a distant scream ripped through the night air. Sarah jumped to her feet. "They're here," she said quietly. "Get ready." The survivors scrambled to prepare whatever weapons they had, rusty rifles, metal pipes, anything to fight back. Sarah checked her own rifle, then moved to the small window. The faint glow of glowing eyes appeared in the darkness. They were coming. The first Deathworlder leaped into the camp like a shadow, fast and deadly. Its claws scraped the ground, and its jaws snapped with a terrifying hiss. It attacked without mercy. Gunfire erupted as Sarah and the team fought back fiercely. Bullets tore through the air, but many creatures moved too fast. One creature lunged at Jamal, and he barely rolled out of the way. "Keep shooting," Sarah shouted. "Aim for the eyes." The creatures hissed and screeched, their strange alien bodies twisting and turning as they closed in. Some had long, sharp tails. Others had jagged limbs ending in deadly spikes. Their skin was rough and dark, almost like stone but with glowing cracks pulsing beneath in the chaos. One of the survivors, a young woman named Leela, was cornered. She screamed as a Deathworlder pounced. Sarah fired a shot just in time, saving her, but Leela collapsed, shaking and terrified. "We can't hold them off forever," Sarah said, voice strained. "We need a plan." Suddenly the ground trembled. Violently, a louder roar echoed, different from the others. Something bigger was coming. From the shadows, a massive Deathworlder emerged. It was taller than a man, its body covered in thick armor-like scales. Its eyes burned red with rage. Sarah's heart pounded. "This is not just a hunting party," she said. "It's a full attack." The survivors retreated deeper into the bunker, barricading doors and windows. But the creatures didn't stop. They scratched and smashed, trying to break through. Inside the dark tunnels, Luis, the lost team member, was trapped. He had been taken during the first night's attack, dragged into the darkness. Now, his muffled screams echoed through the corridors. Sarah's mind raced. She had to save him. "Who will come with me?" She asked the group. Marcus, a tough survivor with steady hands, stepped forward. "I'm with you." Together, they armed themselves and moved cautiously into the tunnels. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth and fear. Every step echoed in the narrow passageways. Sarah held her flashlight steady, searching for any sign of Luis. Suddenly, a shadow flickered. Sarah's rifle fired before she even fully saw the shape. It was a Deathworlder, but smaller, quicker, and almost invisible in the dark. Marcus fired as well, but the creature vanished into the shadows. "This way," Marcus whispered, pointing. Deeper into the tunnels, they followed, hearts pounding. Ahead, they found a narrow chamber where Luis was held. He was tied to a metal frame, bruised but alive. "Luis," Sarah called softly. Luis's eyes flickered open. "Sarah, help me." "Yes." Sarah worked to free him. The walls around them began to shake. "The Deathworlders are coming," Marcus warned. "We have to move." Just as they freed Luis, a group of Deathworlders appeared at the tunnel entrance. Blocking their escape, Sarah's mind raced for a way out. She noticed a small ventilation shaft in the corner. "Can you crawl through it?" she asked Luis. He nodded weakly. One by one, Sarah, Marcus, and Luis squeezed into the tight space, crawling through the dark, narrow tunnel behind them. The Deathworlders tried to follow but were too large to fit. After what felt like hours, they emerged back near the bunker. Sarah's relief was short-lived. The survivors' faces were pale with fear. More Deathworlders gathered outside, surrounding the bunker like a deadly ring. "We can't stay here," Sarah said. "We need a new plan. We need help." Jamal, despite his injury, managed to repair the radio again. "Command Station Vega. This is Aurora Scout Team. We're under heavy attack. Request immediate emergency extraction." Static filled the radio. Then a cold voice came through. "Copy that, Aurora. Reinforcements are delayed. You must hold position." Sarah clenched her jaw. "Hold position," she repeated. Easier said than done. As the Deathworlders closed in, Sarah looked at the survivors. "We fight together, or we die alone." And then the night exploded in chaos once again. The bunker trembled as the Deathworlders battered the walls again and again. Captain Sarah Ellis stood by the reinforced door, rifle ready, sweat dripping from her brow. The survivors huddled behind her, their faces pale but determined. Outside, creatures scratched, snarled, and screamed. A horrifying chorus echoing through the dark planet's night. "We can't hold much longer," Jamal said, wincing as he pressed a cloth to his arm wound. Sarah looked at the group. "We need to find another way out somewhere they won't expect." The survivors exchanged fearful glances. "Down the old mining shafts," Marcus suggested. "There's a hidden tunnel system beneath the colony. It might lead to safety. Or at least a place we can hide." Sarah nodded. "Good, we'll move." Tonight, we don't have a choice. Nightfall wrapped the planet in darkness again, colder and thicker than before. The group prepared quietly, gathering supplies and weapons. Sarah checked her gear and looked at each survivor. "Stay close. Stay quiet. No mistakes." One by one, they left the bunker, slipping into the rocky landscape. The Deathworlders watched from the shadows. But the group moved fast. Avoiding patrols and hiding behind craters and broken equipment, they reached the entrance to the mining shafts, an old, rusted metal door buried beneath a pile of rubble. Marcus pulled out a small tool and worked quickly. The door creaked open. Inside, the air was stale and heavy. Dust floated in the weak beam of Sarah's flashlight. "Keep your eyes open," she warned. "We don't know what's down here." The group entered the tunnels, footsteps echoing softly. The passage was narrow, lined with old pipes and broken machinery. Strange symbols were scratched into the walls, warnings, or signs from the past. Jamal pointed to a flickering light further down. "Looks like the power still works." Somehow, as they moved deeper, the air grew colder. Sarah shivered. Despite her jacket, suddenly the ground shook beneath them, a tremor, stronger than before. "What was that?" Lila whispered, clutching her makeshift spear. Before anyone could answer, a low rumble filled the tunnel. Ash! Dust fell from the ceiling. The tunnel ahead had collapsed. "We're trapped," Marcus said grimly. Panic rose in the group. "We have to find another way," Sarah said, trying to keep calm. "Keep moving." They followed a narrow side passage, twisting and turning through the dark. Then, faint voices reached their ears. A strange language, broken and harsh. Sarah motioned for silence. The group crouched, hiding behind a metal crate. Ahead, figures. Moved Deathworlders, but different. These creatures wore crude armor made from scraps of metal and bone. They spoke in guttural voices, almost like a language. One of them carried a strange device, glowing with an eerie blue light. Sarah's heart pounded.
Ow.
These weren't wild animals. They were organized. They had technology. Looks like they're hunting us, Jamal whispered. "We're not just prey. We're prisoners." The group stayed hidden, watching as the armored Deathworlders prepared to leave the chamber. Sarah pulled out a small device from her pocketa. Scanner she had taken. From the colony's lab, the screen blinked with strange readings. "This technology, it's alien, not human. It's not just old scrap, it's active. We have to warn the others," Sarah said. She turned to leave, but felt a sharp pain in her leg. She looked down. One of the smaller Deathworlders had attacked. Biting her calf, Sarah fell back with a grunt. The creatures had found them. Chaos erupted in the tunnel. Gunfire cracked. Screams echoed. Sarah fought to stay conscious, biting back pain. Jamal and Marcus defended her fiercely. Pushing back the attackers, Lila screamed as a Deathworlder lunged at her. But she struck back with her spear. The fight was desperate and brutal. After what felt like hours, the creatures finally retreated into the shadows. Sarah looked around some. Survivors were wounded, but all alive. "We need to keep moving," she said, forcing herself to stand. Her leg burned, but she refused to slow down. They followed the tunnels deeper, hoping for an exit. Hours later, the group found a vast underground chamber. The walls pulsed with strange light in the center. A massive machine hummed a generator unlike anything Sarah had seen before. Jamal approached it cautiously. This must be what powers the Deathworlders. It looked alive, with tubes and wires feeding into the planet itself. Cutting this off could stop the attacks, she said, but as they moved closer, the ground trembled again. The generator's glow shifted, growing brighter and hotter. Suddenly, a deep voice echoed through the chamber, mechanical, cold. Unauthorized presence detected. Security protocols activated. The room filled with harsh lights and a low, menacing hum. Metal doors slammed shut behind them. "We're trapped," Marcus said. From the shadows emerged more Deathworlders, this time fully armored and ready. Sarah raised her rifle. "This ends." Now, the battle for survival was far from over and deep beneath K-942. The dark secret of the Deathworlders waited to be revealed. The heavy metal doors slammed shut behind them with a deafening clang, echoing through the underground chamber. Captain Sarah Ellis felt the chill of the cold walls pressing in, and the faint hum of the giant machine filled the air like a heartbeat. The strange generator pulsed with a sickly green light, its tubes writhing like veins beneath the planet's surface around her. The survivors tightened their grip on their weapons, eyes wide with fear and determination. The armored Deathworlders stepped forward, blocking every exit, their glowing eyes burning with a cruel intelligence. "This isn't just a planet full of monsters," Sarah whispered to Jamal, who nodded grimly. "These Deathworlders, they're controlled." "This machine, it's the source," Jamal said, voice low. The largest creature, a towering figure with jagged armor and blades for arms, growled and stepped closer. Sarah raised her rifle. "We need to destroy that machine," Marcus scanned the chamber walls quickly. "If we can overload it, maybe it'll stop powering them." Lila's voice shook as she added, "But how? That thing looks ancient and dangerous." Suddenly, the machine's pulsing light changed from green to fiery red. A harsh mechanical voice boomed again. "Warning. System breach detected. Security lockdown engaged." The Deathworlders advanced. The fight was brutal. That echoed like thunder, while survivors threw rocks and fought with whatever they had. The Deathworlders moved with terrifying speed and strength, blocking their attacks and countering with deadly precision. Marcus dove toward the control panel on the machine, trying to hack into it, while Sarah and the others held the line. "Almost. There," Marcus shouted over the noise. Suddenly, the generator released a shockwave of energy, throwing Sarah back against the wall. She gasped, pain shooting through her body, but she gritted her teeth and pushed herself up. Marcus yelled, I'm overriding the system." The machine's hum grew louder, almost painful. The Deathworlders roared and surged forward. Trying to stop him, Sarah took aim at the biggest creature, firing shot after shot, buying Marcus's time. With a final beep, the generator shuddered violently. Lights flickered. Then the entire chamber was plunged into darkness. Silence. For a moment, no one moved. Then the faint sound of heavy breathing echoed. The Deathworlders were frozen, their glowing eyes dimming. Slowly they collapsed, lifeless husks of stone and metal. Sarah stood, heart pounding. It's over, To. For now. Jamel exhaled deeply. We shut them down. But Sarah knew better. The planet was still dangerous. The survivors were trapped underground with no easy way out. We need to find an exit, she said, before the system restarts or backup arrives. Exploring the chamber in the dim light of their flashlights, the team found a hidden stairway leading deeper into the planet's core. Why would there be a tunnel going down? Lila wondered aloud. Sarah didn't answer. Her mind was racing with questions about the Deathworlders' origins and the strange technology that controlled them. The group descended carefully into the unknown, the air growing warmer and more humid. As they moved deeper, the walls began to pulse with faint blue light at the bottom. They found a vast cavern filled with strange crystals glowing softly. In the center stood an ancient pedestal with symbols. Glowing on its surface, Jamal examined the symbols. It's language ... It's not human. It's like nothing I've seen. Suddenly, a holographic figure flickered to life above the pedestal. It was a tall, slender being with glowing eyes and metallic skin. I am the Guardian, it said in a calm, echoing voice. You have disabled the Deathworlders' control system, but the balance is fragile. Sarah stepped forward. Who created this? What is this place? The Guardian's eyes glowed brighter. Long ago, an advanced civilization created the Deathworlders as protectors of this world's core. But the system failed, and the protectors became hunters. Only by restoring balance can you survive. Restore balance. Sarah repeated, confused. The Guardian gestured toward the crystals. These are the Heartstones. They regulate the planet's energy. If they are destroyed or removed, chaos will consume everything. Jamal looked around nervously. So we can't just destroy the generator. No, the Guardian said. You must choose. Restore the Heartstones and regain control, or leave and abandon the planet to its fate. Sarah's mind raced. Could they fix this? Or were they doomed to fight endless Deathworlders? Suddenly, an alarm blared from the entrance of the cavern. The Deathworlders' control system was rebooting. We don't have much time, Marcus said urgently. Sarah looked at the survivors. We need to act fast. If we can restore the Heartstones, maybe we can stop the Deathworlders. For good. They split into teams, each taking a cluster of glowing crystals. As they worked, the cavern shook violently. The ground cracked, and streams of molten rock flowed nearby. The Guardian's voice echoed calmly. Balance is fragile. Your choices will shape this world's future. Sarah's heart pounded as she carried a heavy Heartstone toward the pedestal. Outside, the growls of Deathworlders began to rise again. Time was running out. The cavern trembled violently as Sarah and the survivors worked quickly to place the glowing Heartstones back onto the ancient pedestal. The room filled with a strange light blue and green, pulsing like a heartbeat in the dark. Outside, through cracks in the rock, faint growls and screeches echoed Deathworlders' awakening, drawn by the rebooting of their control system. Time was running out. Sarah wiped sweat from her brow, struggling to stay calm. Keep moving. We don't have much time. Jamal carefully set one Heartstone into a slot on the pedestal. As it clicked into place, the crystal's glow grew brighter, and a soft hum filled the chamber. Marcus followed, placing the second Heartstone, and Lila the third. The energy in the room rose, crackling in the air. Suddenly the ground shook again. The ceiling trembled and rocks began to fall. Sarah yelled, "Hurry! We have to finish this now." But just then, a terrible sound cut through the chaos. A massive explosion echoed from the tunnel behind them. From the darkness, a wave of armored Deathworlders poured into the cavern, their eyes glowing red and filled with rage. The survivors raised their weapons, preparing for a desperate last stand. We won't make it if we fight them all, Sarah said. We have to finish restoring the Heartstones. Marcus nodded. I'll cover you. With fierce determination, Marcus fired his rifle, keeping the advancing Deathworlders at bay. Each shot rang out sharply in the cavern. Jamal and Leela hurried to place the remaining black stones into the pedestals. Empty slots. Sarah moved swiftly, her hands steady despite the chaos around her. As the final heartstone clicked into place, the entire chamber pulsed with brilliant light. The Deathworlders halted, their glowing eyes flickering and dimming. The massive creatures growled in confusion, then slowly fell to the ground, motionless. Sarah exhaled deeply. It's working. The Guardian's holographic form appeared again, brighter than before. Balance is restored, the Guardian said. The Deathworlders will return to their original purpose as protectors, not hunters. A sense of calm washed over the group. But Sarah knew their journey was far from over. The cavern's walls began to shift, revealing a hidden passage illuminated by soft light. This must be the way out, Marcus said, relief in his voice. The survivors gathered their things and moved cautiously through the tunnel. As they walked, Sarah looked back once at the glowing pedestal, now quiet and peaceful. Will this peace last? She wondered aloud. No one answered. The tunnel opened to a vast underground lake, its surface glowing with bioluminescent light. A sleek, ancient ship rested on the shore, half buried in the rock. This is their ship, Jamal said, awe in his voice, the original creators. Sarah stepped forward, her fingers brushing over the ship's hull. This might be our only way off this planet, she said. As the survivors boarded the ship, the Guardian's voice echoed softly. Your future is in your hands. Use knowledge wisely. Protect life. Sarah took a deep breath and started the ship's control panel. The engines hummed to life. Outside, the dark sky of K942 began to lighten. On was coming as the ship lifted off. Sarah looked down at the planet, a world no longer ruled by death but given a second chance. Her heart swelled with hope, but she knew this was only the beginning. The universe was vast and dangerous, and somewhere out there new threats were waiting. The ancient ship soared through the blackness of space, leaving K942 behind. Inside, the survivors were silent, each lost in their own thoughts. The glowing controls flickered softly as the engines hummed steadily. Captain Sarah Ellis stood at the bridge, staring out at the stars. They had escaped the death world, but the nightmare wasn't over. We did it, Jamal said quietly. We survived. Sarah shook her head. For now. But something feels wrong. Suddenly, the ship's alarm blared. Red lights flashed throughout the cabin. Unidentified vessel approaching fast. The ship's AI announced in a cold voice. On screen, Sarah ordered. The main screen lit up, showing a massive, sleek spacecraft moving toward them at incredible speed. Its hull was black and shiny, covered with strange symbols. Who are they? Lila asked nervously. No idea, Marcus said, gripping his weapon. But they don't look friendly. The approaching ship sent a sudden pulse of energy. Ancient ship shuddered violently. Shields holding at 70%, Jamal reported. Sarah's eyes narrowed. They want us. The other survivors scrambled to their positions, ready for a fight. The black ship fired again, this time stronger. Cutting through their shields, brace for impact. Sarah shouted. The battle was fierce and fast. The ancient ship's weapons fired desperately. The attackers were powerful and precise. Sarah shouted orders, her mind racing to keep everyone alive. We need to outmaneuver them. Take us into that asteroid field. The pilot veered the ship sharply, weaving between massive space rocks. The enemy ship followed, firing relentlessly. Suddenly, an explosion rocked the hull. Sparks flew, and the ship's lights flickered. We're losing power, Jamal yelled. Sarah gritted her teeth. Keep fighting. Don't let them board us. But as the enemy ship closed in, a loud bang echoed through the corridor. They're inside. Marcus shouted. Sarah grabbed her rifle and rushed to the landing bay. There, shadowy figures moved fast, dark armored soldiers, unlike any Deathworlders they had faced. The survivors fought hard, but the invaders were well-trained and ruthless. Sarah spotted their leader, a tall figure in black armor with glowing red eyes. He raised his hand, and with a blast of energy knocked Marcus against the wall. Who are you? "What do you want?" Sarah demanded. The leader smiled coldly. "We are the enforcers. We control life and death in this sector. You've disturbed the balance on K942. Sarah clenched her fists. "We saved that planet," the leader laughed. "You will pay for your interference." Back on the bridge, Jamal was trying to repair the damaged systems. "Sarah, we have limited time. They'll take the ship if we don't fight back." Sarah took a deep breath. "Then we fight. For our lives and for freedom." The survivors regrouped, preparing for the final battle. Outside the windows, stars streaked past as the ship dodged and weaved. Inside, the enforcers pressed their attack in the chaos. Sarah spotted a control panel that might disable the ship's internal defenses. "Cover me," she shouted. Marcus and Lila laid down, suppressing fire as Sarah sprinted to the panel. She flipped switches and pressed buttons. Heart pounding suddenly, the ship's defenses activated, sending a powerful shockwave through the corridors. The enforcers stumbled, some falling back. Seizing the moment, Sarah led the survivors forward, pushing the invaders out. With the invaders retreating, the ship powered up its engines. "We need to escape and warn others," Sarah said. Jamal nodded, sweat dripping from his forehead. "Setting course for the nearest friendly outpost," said. As the ship jumped into hyperspace, Sarah looked ahead. Determined, the war was far from over, but they would fight. To protect the galaxy, the ancient ship sped through hyperspace toward the nearest friendly outpost. Inside, the survivors caught their breath, but the tension was far from gone. Captain Sarah Ellis paced the bridge, her mind racing. The enforcers had warned them this was bigger than just one planet. They had upset a powerful force in the galaxy. "We can't run forever," Sarah said, voice steady but fierce. "We have to fight back." Jamal nodded. "The outpost will help us. We'll gather reinforcements." But the outpost was dark on their scanners. "No response," Marcus said, frowning. "Something's wrong." Before they could react, the ship's alarms screamed again. Multiple enemy ships detected. "They are surrounding us." Sarah's heart pounded. The enforcers had tracked them down. "Prepare for battle," she ordered. "This is our last chance." The ship's weapons hummed as the enemy ships closed in. Survivors steadied themselves. Knowing this fight would decide everything, explosions rocked the hull. Lights flickered, and the ship shook violently. Sarah fired at the incoming vessels, her hands steady despite the chaos. "Jamal, keep the shields up. Marcus, help Lila with the weapons." The enforcers boarded again. But this time, the survivors were ready. A brutal fight erupted in the corridor's blaster fire, shouted orders, and the clash of weapons. Sarah confronted the black-armored leader once more. "This ends now," she shouted. The leader sneered. "Cannot stop the enforcers." But Sarah fought with every ounce of strength, pushing the leader back. Suddenly, a deafening explosion ripped through the ship. The floor cracked beneath them. Sarah grabbed the leader, throwing him into a wall. "We decide the future," she growled. Back on the bridge, Jamal managed to repair the main systems. "The shields are holding, but just barely." Sarah called out, "Now's our chance. Activate the Heartstone's energy from the pedestal." The survivors quickly connected the ancient ship system to the Heartstone's power. A brilliant pulse of energy surged through the ship. The enemy ship's back. The enforcers stumbled, their power fading. Outside the windows, enemy ships exploded one by one. Sarah and her team watched as the last attackers fled. The ship floated quietly in space, battered, but victorious. Sarah looked at her tired crew. "We saved ourselves," she said. "But the galaxy is still dangerous." Jamal nodded. "We have the Heartstones. Maybe we can protect more worlds now." Sarah smiled faintly. "We have to be ready." As the ship set course for the next adventure, the stars stretched before them, a vast unknown full of danger and hope. The survivors had faced death and darkness, but they had also found strength, courage, and a new purpose, and their story was just beginning.